Okay, first of all, I would like to warmly thank our colleagues, Thibault, Marie-Lou, and Eniko for a very kind invitation to talk this afternoon. And for foreign colleagues, I would like to apologize in advance for my heavy and horrible French accent. Okay, so we are in the same environment that the one which were presented in the previous paper by Pierre-Yves. This is Eastern France during the early Iron Age, and I'm going to talk about the basic result of an international research project which was conducted during some 17 years in Eastern France, in Lorraine, in the Seille Valley, about huge center of salt production. So to move forward, yeah. Okay, so first of all, what is the value of salt? Salt is a very important resource, since in fact salt was mainly used in pre-industrial societies for feeding livestock, herbivores like horses, like sheep or cows. They need salt. It needs to be fed in salt. And also salt has a major role in preserving food. For instance, meat, but also vegetable, also cheese. You need salt to make such kind of food. And the human consumption, in fact, is very marginal. So the important point is that as soon as people are living in permanent settlements, you know, they need to be supplied with a regular amount of salt. So, how to obtain salt? There is just three basic ways to get it. First, you can dig in salt rock formation. This is what have been done in the Hallstatt mines as soon as the late Bronze Age. There is another way to get salt. You can take seawater and put it to evaporate. This is the marais salon, but you need heat and wind. And there is a third way to get it. This is to boil brine in furnaces. This is a technology called briquetage, as it was still used in Africa, such in Mali, in the 70s of the last century. So, a very short history of the origin of salt production in Europe. The first traces of salt production, they date back of the Neolithic, of course. But what is very striking is that the technology, which is still variable during till the early Bronze Age, tends to get standardized during the middle and late Bronze Age. And so you see, this is a technology with vessels, and they are put on pillars. So a very striking point is that during the Iron Age, there is obviously an explosion in demand for salt. This is visible in the activity of mines, such as in Hallstatt, for instance, where it is danger dated. And what can be seen is that there is a connection with the exploitation and very important economic networks that rely the miners with centers of production abroad. And what is also very striking is that the production, the volume of productions, they exceed very importantly a local demand. So clearly, they are supplying external market. The production of salt is not just for local consumption. It is for external market. And so this spread of salt production can be seen also in continental briquetage, and this is at that period that you found a lot of very important salt production center, which are spreading all over Europe. And the site that I'm going to talk about is just in the middle. It doesn't. Okay, it's here. You see, Seille. You have very important center in Bad Nauheim in Germany, Schwäbisch Hall, Bad Friedrichsthal, Halle, And then during the late Iron Age, we have a series of a little workshop which are producing salt from seawater. But you see that the most important centers are located far away from the coast. There is 400 kilometers here in the Haute-Seille. And you see, on another way, that, you know, in the Alps, you have a series of salt springs, for instance, in Jura, but also in Austria, and the mine of Hallstatt and Allein are located there. So why salt became a strategic resource? In fact, it's becoming a very lucrative business when a large basin of population require salt, and then you have just a few centers which are able to provide it. And so communities that control salt production, they became particularly powerful. And the returns which are coming from the production of salt, you know, they may increase their means of developing, for instance, fortress with engineers. They may provide them with material which are usually difficult to get. And so the salt masters are able to endow their workshop with exceptional resources, such as fuel, which help to multiply the production volumes to meet demand. So, among the central places of the early Iron Age, there is obviously agricultural resource that Pierre has been talking about, but there is also in the case of the Seille Valley the supply with fuel, the exploitation of forest. So the Briquetage de Marsal has been discovered in the late 17th century when the place has been fortified under the reign of Lewis XIV. And in fact, there's a huge accumulation of terracotta, which are in some places more than 10 meters thick. Have been called briquetage because it was the word what was used by local inhabitants to describe as a huge amount of, as you can see, of pieces of burnt clay. And so briquetage, the term briquetage became widespread in 1901 at the International Congress of the Berlin Anthropological Society, which took place in the Seille Valley. So a lot of archaeologists came and discovered that in fact they were dealing with the same kind of remain, particularly in Germany, Belgium, but also in the British Isles. So we have been conducting a huge geophysical research program at the beginning of the 2000s, and combined with geophysics. And you see that we were able to demonstrate that we were dealing with huge workshop spreading over 10 kilometers long, and some of the workshops were covering hundreds of hectares. You see also some detailed view of some places, such as here in Vic-sur-Seille. You see with all of that is furnaces, and here they are the furnaces which were used to boil the brine. Here in Marsal, you see the geophysical survey. You see one of the workshops we have been excavating. This one is the Francieux. So you see. This is 1 kilometer, so it's spreading over maybe 400 meters long. So it's thousands of furnaces, all dating back to the 6th century BC. That is to say, the Hallstatt D1 production. So how salt was produced? In fact, we were able to reconstruct the chain opératoire, which begin with the extraction of brine from wells, what we have been unable to find, but you have a lot of very important operations which are related to the concentration of the brine, to put it to saturation, and to enrich the brine also with the washing of sediment containing salt. Then the salt crystals are extracted by heating the brine. And then when the salt crystal has been extracted from the brine, they are cooked in salt mold in order to produce a salt cake. And with a salt cake, you know, standardized, they are created by molding the mold onto a wooden shape, and so you get always the same weight and the same volume of salt with the salt cake. What was interesting is that we have been excavating the huge surface which were devoted to the enrichment of brine, and we found a series of fragments of female bracelets which were broken during this operation. And we found also in the refuses of the washing of the sediments pieces of necklaces which were broken. So women had lost amber beads or even coral beads. And so, and there were also a lot of ceramic vessels which I associated to the, you know, to the pouring of the brine, which is something that you found also in Africa, in Sahara. The interesting point is that when you look at the funerary assemblage, you find that the bracelets are associated to female grave, which were the equivalent in the burial mound cemeteries to the sword bearers, the cavaliers à épée. So it's people who are belonging to the upper strata of the society. And so there's a people, especially the women, are working with brine, and we found that it was some gender division of labor. Women were dealing with brine, and men were dealing with the furnaces and the controlling of the heat. Around the workshop, we found a huge funerary area with enclosure and with individual graves, and also again with imported material such as gold, for instance, dating to the end of the 6th century BC. And we were lucky enough to find skeleton and to do some strontium analysis. And it has been demonstrated that they were breathing spray containing huge amount of salt. So they were probably the people who were dealing with the furnaces, and they were buried there. So again, they belong to the upper strata of the society. But there were also probably some forced laborers in the garbage refuses. There were quite a lot of human bones that have been abandoned with the animal bones, and we found also a silo containing bodies, 8 bodies, an infant, and 4 women and 3 men. So you see their faces that have been reconstructed. And strontium analysis demonstrated they were local. There's no DNA link. They had a very bad diet. They never ate any meat, and they were suffering a lot of fractures. The men on the hands and the women on the coast. They were also all at the deformation of the heel on their foot, which is very often associated to the practice of carrying very heavy weight on your shoulder. So there's an impact on your back, but also on your feet. So we believe that there's a people who have been just thrown away, you know, in abandoned pits, where probably people who were used to work in the workshop, probably carrying the fuel or doing all the difficult and painful tasks. So, how to characterize this production of salt? Is it an industry? This is the one of the main question which was addressed by this research project. So the historian of antiquity and the Middle Age, they identify usually 4 criteria to distinguish industrial production. First, the production is intended to an external market, and this is a difference with craft, which is mainly local or extra-local. Second, the products are mass produced and they are standardized. And this is exactly the case that we have with the salt cake. And third, production is rationalized with a specialization of workspace, which is the case with the salt workshop. They are separated from the settlement. They are isolated and built close to the salt springs and the wells. And the production is rationalized, and there is a division of work which is very obvious in the way in which all the technical elements are produced. They are produced in series. And so work is also divided into separate tasks and use probably a proletarianized workforce, which is probably the case as we have seen. So the economy of the salt maker is also interesting because as we were working in a Martian environment, we found a lot of seeds and carpological remains, which were very important to define what kind of agricultural resources they were consuming. So they were consuming cereals such as barley, millet and spelt. They use butcher's meat such as pork, beef and mutton. But the interesting point is that they didn't took part to the agricultural activities. Since we were able to demonstrate that this activity of producing salt was seasonal, it took part especially during summer, where there is heat and wind, and during winter we had flooding, repeated flooding, that made the workshop very difficult to operate. So in fact, during the period of great activity in the field, when you have to harvest, for instance, or then when you have to plow, the people of the workshop were working, extracting salt. So they were clearly separated from the agricultural activity. And in the settlements, we found also remains that demonstrated that the salt maker also produced luxury craft. They make black rock rings, for instance, but they cast also some small bronze ornaments, and they work iron from imported ingot. So we think that these activities took part during the winter, during the period during which the workshop were not operating. And the production volume are estimated in thousands of tons of salt per year. They were obviously destined to a market which is located outside of the region of Lorraine. In some excavation in Alsace, so it is about nearly 100 kilometers away from the Seille Valley, fragments of briquetage have been found, and the analysis of the pieces demonstrated that they were coming from the Seille Valley. So when you look on the curve here, you see that the resources, in fact, are coming from different distances. What is local in the Seille Valley is the clay and the brine, of course, but the fuel, which is made of oak, is coming from the plateau, from the limestone plateau, which are around the valley in a radius of 15 to 20 kilometers. Crop also are not coming from the valley, which is very often flooded. The bone tool also is not coming from the valley. The cattle is coming from a very important distance. Strontium analysis demonstrated that pork, for instance, grew on crystalline soil. So the nearest one are in the Vosges mountain, 80 kilometers away from the valley. Greenstones also are coming from the La Salle quarries, 80 kilometers away. And probably labor forces. We found also in the garbage refuse some human bones, scattered human bones, and one of those belonged to a young guy in his 20s who has been riding very intensively horses, and so it's not someone who belongs to the ordinary class of people. It's probably someone from the upper classes. So we may imagine that some labor force were also taken from away. Raw materials such as bronze, iron is not local. Some analysis demonstrated that they were coming from the Rhineland area, and we found also gold, coral, amber, which is coming from a distance of over than 1,000 kilometers from the Seille Valley. So all of that is, it does reflect the network along which salt was exchanged, and the material which are coming in the Seille Valley in return from the diffusion of salt. So the question that it was addressed by this research project was, is industry an accident, an historical accident that occurred only in the 19th century, or did it happen before in proto-history? And in this case, what are the previous stage of industry? Usually, historian of the 18th century have identified what they called a proto-industry. It originates in the rural world, and this is a preliminary stage in the transition to industry. And so it is based also on different criteria. The first one, it says that all the stages of industrial production process are carried out on site, which is the case of the Seille Valley, from the extraction of the brine to the creation of the salt cake. Industrial work is separated from agricultural work. This is what we observe, indeed. And then production center, which are proto-industrial, source their food resource and labor from surrounding agricultural region, which is also the case in the Seille Valley. So there's three criteria which identify a proto-industry in the modern period, apply also in the 6th century BC for the first phase of the Briquetage de la Seille. So it pushes also to the over-exploitation of resources, since intensive salt production, which was interrupted for several weeks at a time, required considerable volume of fuel. And fuel was provided by highly calorific wood species, such as oak and beech, which are up to 17% of the fuel. And this fuel is not provided by the surroundings of the valley. So the species grow on dry limestone soils, which means that the fuel comes from large forests outside the Seille Valley. And at the same period, we have also very important fortification, Messin, for instance, that Pierre was just shown on his map, and Tincry also, and they are based on lime, on huge core of lime, in which limestone has been burned in order to create a core under the rampart. And at Messin, the extension of the ramparts reaches more than 1 kilometer, and it has been calculated that it has used an entire forest to be built. At Tincry, this is a double. Wait, yes, I have to speed up. Okay, so this is an important point about the question of fuel. So when you look at the latest period, which is the late Iron Age, you see that in fact we are passing from a proto-industrial stage to an industrial one. You see the size of the workshop, you know, here. And very interestingly, in fact, all the richness that you found in the grave disappeared at that moment. So it may be related also to the question of the transformation of property and the fact that salt may be controlled by power which are located outside of the valley. It could be 10 kilometers away. It could be for instance, at Metz, the capital of the tribe. So when you look on the long run, you see that, in fact, estimation of the volume of production are not negligible. Here, this is the the modern and contemporary period, the Middle Age, and you see that the early Iron Age and the late Iron Age, you know, are in between the Middle Age and the modern period. So why is it interesting? Salt as a vital resources for community provide us with a very interesting insight about not only about the economy but also about the social transformation of the Iron Age societies. So I thank you for your attention.